Hello and welcome to this video. Thanks so much for everyone who tuned in. I hope you enjoyed today. We will be looking at the Premier League predictions for this weekend. Some great games, including Manchester United taking on Arsenal on the Monday Night Football. That's one which I'm going to really be looking forward to. I just want to say that I've a quick update on my channel. I use a program called XSplit to broadcast on YouTube and Twitch, and it's not working for me at the moment. I've gone live on Twitch using OBS, which is another broadcasting software, and that was fine, but to do what I want to do on the watch-alongs on the YouTube channel, it's not as good for what I want to do. So I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing over the weekend about watch-alongs. There probably will be some, but they probably won't be as good or as as they are usually. They'll probably be a little bit different, but I hope you understand there's literally nothing I can do. I've spoken to them and they've sent off what they found to the developers of the software, but there's nothing that I can do at the moment, which is really frustrating, but hopefully it will be sorted out soon. So the first game we're going to be looking at is Sheffield United versus Liverpool. Liverpool are in first place. They have won all 6 games so far this season in the Premier League. Sheffield United, they've had a really good start in my opinion as well. They are in 10th place as well with 8 points. In the last 5 games for each team, Sheffield United had a 2-0 win over Blackburn in the EFL Cup. They went to Chelsea and got a 2-2 draw after being 2-0 down, which is a very good point. They lost to Southampton 1-0. They went to Everton and won 2-0, which Chris Wilder described as their worst performance so far. And then in the EFL Cup, there was a shock. They lost to Sunderland 1-0. Obviously, Sunderland are probably a bigger club than Sheffield United, but Sunderland are playing their trade in League 1 at the moment, and Sheffield United are a Premier League outfit. Last 5 games for Liverpool, they won against Burnley 3-0, they won against Newcastle 3-1, they lost in Naples against Napoli 2-0 in the Champions League, but since then a 2-1 win over Chelsea, that was on Sunday, and then in midweek they had a 2-0 victory over MK Dons in the League Cup. I don't see any reason at the moment why Liverpool would not win this game. Liverpool are, such a good team at the moment. They are, one of the best teams in the world, and they've won all 6 games so far. They're already 5 points ahead of Manchester City, and I think they're going to extend their lead at the top. So I think that they will win this game. I'm going to go 3-0 to Liverpool. I think Liverpool will be very comfortable against Sheffield United. I think the Sheffield United won't have lay a glove on Liverpool. I think Liverpool will be absolutely fine, but maybe there'll be a shock there, but I just can't see that happening. The first 3 o'clock game is Aston Villa versus Burnley. So Aston Villa are in 18th place, and they are currently occupying one of the places in the relegation zone. Burnley have had 2 wins, 2 draws and 2 defeats from their opening 6 games, and are currently stuck on 8 points, the same amount of points as Chelsea, Manchester United and Tottenham Hotspur. So not a bad start by Burnley. The last 5 games, they beat Aston Villa beat Crewe 6-1, and then a 1-0 defeat to Crystal Palace, a 0-0 draw West Ham, 3-2 defeat to Arsenal, where Aston Villa took the lead twice in that game. That was a very exciting game. That was on Sunday. In midweek, they had the League Cup and they won 3-1 against Brighton and Hove Albion. Burnley's last 5 games are as follows. They played Wolves and drew 1-1. A 3-1 defeat in the EFL Cup to Sunderland, a 3-0 defeat to Liverpool, a 1-0 draw with Brighton, and then a 2-0 victory over Norwich. This one could go either way, but with Aston Villa being at home, I think that they will get the victory here. I'm going to go 2-1 to Aston Villa. The next game we have is Bournemouth versus West Ham. Bournemouth are currently in 6th place with 10 points. West Ham are in 5th place with 11 points, the same amount of points as Arsenal and Leicester, who are currently in 3rd place. So both teams have had a really good start to the season so far. Last 5 games for West Ham: 2-0 victory over Newport in the Cup, 2-0 victory over Norwich, a 0-0 draw with Aston Villa, that 2-0 victory over Manchester United on Sunday, and then an embarrassing defeat in the League Cup to Oxford, losing 4-0. Bournemouth's last 5 games, they won on penalties against Forest Green. They beat Everton 3-1, but before that game they had Leicester and they lost 3-1. They went to Southampton and won 3-1, and then in the midweek they lost to Burton 2-0. They played like nearly 30 minutes of stoppage time due to there being floodlight issues, so that was quite strange for Bournemouth to play that amount of time of extra time. Obviously they only ended up playing about the same like 90 odd minutes, but it was weird having such a big period of stoppage time. So my prediction for this one, I think Bournemouth have started really well, and I think that they will get the victory. I'm going to go 2-0 to Bournemouth for that one. Chelsea are our next game, and they are taking on Brighton and Hove Albion. 11th place we see Chelsea with 8 points. Brighton are in 15th with 6 points, 1 win, 3 draws and 2 defeats, and Chelsea have had 2 of each result. Chelsea's last 5 games are as follows: a 2-2 draw with Sheffield United, 5-2 victory over Wolves, a 1-0 defeat to Valencia at home in the Champions League, a 2-1 defeat to Liverpool in the Premier League, and a 7-1 thrashing of Grimsby Town in the EFL Cup. Brighton's last 5 games: a 2-1 victory over Bristol Rovers, a 4-0 defeat at the hands of Manchester City, 2 draws against Burnley and Newcastle, and then a 3-1 defeat to Aston Villa in the Cup. So Brighton, they started off not too bad actually. I thought they had that victory over Watford. They got a good point against West Ham, and I thought they'd be all right, but they have not done too well as of late. They probably should have beaten Newcastle. Newcastle were very poor. I think Newcastle had like 30% possession. Burnley, they were 1-0 up right to the end. They conceded late, so they could have had a few victories from that as well. I'm going to go for a Chelsea win. I'm going to go 3-1 to Chelsea. I just think Chelsea will have too much for Brighton, and I think that they will be very comfortable against Brighton. But Brighton, I think they're a lot better than they were last season. Crystal Palace versus Norwich is our next game. Norwich are in 16th place with 6 points, and Crystal Palace are in 12th with 8 points. Last 5 games for both: Crystal Palace 2-1 victory over Manchester United. They went out of the EFL Cup to Colchester on penalties. A 1-0 victory over Aston Villa. A 4-0 defeat to Tottenham, and a 1-0 draw with Wolves. Wolves scoring late on to equalise in that one. Norwich, they lost 3-2 to Chelsea. They lost 1-0 to Crawley in the League Cup, a 2-0 defeat to West Ham, that amazing 3-2 victory over Manchester City, and then a 2-0 defeat to Burnley. So Norwich haven't been going too well at home. They've lost every single away fixture this season. Their 2 wins have both come at home against Newcastle and Manchester City. For that reason, I'm going to go for Palace to win. I talk about Palace's home form not being the best over the last couple of seasons, but I think they will have enough to beat Norwich. I'm going to go 3-2 to Crystal Palace. I'm going to go for a high-scoring game there. Tottenham and Southampton is our next game. Southampton are in 13th place with 7 points so far this season, 2 wins, 1 draw and 3 defeats. Tottenham have drawn 2, lost 2 and won 2 of their opening 6 games. Tottenham's last 5 games: a 2-2 draw with Arsenal, a 4-0 victory over Crystal Palace, a 2-2 draw with Olympiacos, once again throwing away a 2-0 lead to draw 2-2. They took the lead against Leicester and ended up losing 2-1, and then an embarrassing defeat for them in the EFL Cup. They lost on penalties to Colchester. Southampton's last 5 games are as follows: a 1-0 victory over Fulham in the EFL Cup, a 1-0 draw with Manchester United despite being down to 10 men for a while. They went to Sheffield United and won 1-0. They lost on the Friday Night Football to Bournemouth 3-1, and then they beat Portsmouth 4-0 in the AFL Cup. So they would be very pleased with that victory over their local rivals. Tottenham, I think they'll be alright against Southampton, but Tottenham are so hard to predict because their results have been so up and down. They looked really good against Palace, and I thought they turned a corner, and then they had that draw against Olympiacos, and then that defeat to Leicester, and then going out on penalties to Colchester is a really terrible result. I don't know how this one will go, but I'm going to go for Tottenham just because they won against Crystal Palace, so maybe their form at home is going to be okay. You know, they've won 2 and lost 1 of their opening 3 games in the Premier League at home. You know, they've had some bad results away from home. So for that reason, I'm going to go 2-1 to Tottenham. I think that one could be very close. Wolves and Watford is the last 3 o'clock game. Both sides have made a struggling start to life in the Premier League this season. Wolves have 4 points and Watford have 2 points, and yet to have a victory between them. The last 5 games then, Watford had a 3-0 victory over Coventry, a 1-1 draw with Newcastle, a 2-2 draw with Arsenal, and then at the weekend they lost 8-0 to Manchester City. They followed that up with a 2-1 victory over Swansea in the EFL Cup. The only victories this season for Watford have come in the EFL Cup against Coventry and Swansea, both 2 lower league opposition. Last 5 games for Wolves: a 3-2 defeat to Everton, a 5-2 defeat to Chelsea, a 1-0 defeat to Braga. They drew 1-1 with Crystal Palace, and then a penalty victory over Reading after drawing 1-1. So Wolves have really been struggling. This one could go any way. I have no idea how this one is going to end, but I'm going to go for a Wolves win. I'm going to go 1-0 to Wolves. I really don't know how this one will go. Wolves have been struggling, Watford have been struggling, but this one could go either way. Manchester, maybe after the Manchester City result, there'll be a reaction from Watford, so maybe that will happen, but I literally have no idea. But I'm just going to go for Wolves just because they were alright last season and they need to start kicking on at some point. I'm going to go 1-0 to Wolves. The 5:30 game is Everton versus Manchester City. Everton are in 14th place with 7 points. Manchester City are in second, behind Liverpool with 13 points so far this season. In the last 5 games for Everton, a 4-2 victory over Lincoln, a 3-2 victory over Wolves. Bournemouth, they lost 3-1. Lost 2-0 to Sheffield United, and then they beat Sheffield Wednesday 2-0 in the League Cup. Manchester City's last 5 games: a 4-0 victory over Brighton, that 3-2 defeat to Norwich, which we talked about. City won 3-0 against Shakhtar Donetsk, an 8-0 thrashing of Watford, and then a 3-0 win over Preston in the EFL Cup. So overall, Manchester City have been fine, besides that shock result against Norwich. That was one we weren't expecting, or I don't think anyone was expecting that result. If they would have got a point or won that, then the league would be so much tighter. But I think City go there a lot and get the victory at Everton, and I think that's what they will do. I remember a few years ago Everton won 4-0, but I think City have won both times they've gone there since, and they've looked very good in doing so. So I'm going to go for a win for Manchester City. I'm going to go 2-0 to Manchester City. There's only one game on the Super Sunday this week, and that is going to be between Leicester and Newcastle United. So Leicester are in 3rd place with 11 points, and if Manchester City were to lose, they could go above them into 2nd place. They are in 3rd currently. Newcastle are in 17th place with 5 points so far this season. In the last 5 games, Newcastle have won 1, drew 2 and lost 2 of their 5 games. The first of which was a win against Tottenham, which is their only win this season in all competitions, a 1-0 victory there. They lost on penalties to Leicester City. Then had a 1-1 draw with Watford, a 3-1 defeat to Liverpool, and then a 0-0 draw with Brighton. In the last 5 games for Leicester, they won against Newcastle in the EFL Cup on penalties, a 3-1 victory over Bournemouth, a 1-0 defeat to Manchester United, followed up by a 2-1 win over Tottenham, and then a 4-0 win over Luton in the EFL Cup. I'm going to go for Leicester. Leicester have started really, really well. They've only had a couple of defeats, I think, if that. If they only had one defeat, they've only had one defeat, that Manchester United result. They've looked really good in games. They had a good draw against Chelsea. They had a victory over Tottenham. Probably should have got something against United as well. They probably should have beat Chelsea. In fact, Newcastle aren't going very well, so I'm going to go 2-0 to Leicester. I think Leicester will be fine, and it could be more than 2. And the Monday night football is between Manchester United and Arsenal. Manchester United are in 8th place with 8 points, 2 wins, 2 draws and 2 defeats from their opening 6 games. Arsenal, 3 wins, 2 draws and 1 defeat from the opening 6 games. So in the last 5 games of each team, Manchester United drew with Southampton 1-1. then 2-1-0 victories over Leicester City and Aston before losing to West Ham. And then in the EFL Cup they drew Rochdale 1-1 and won on penalties. Arsenal's last 5 games are as follows: a 2-2 draw with Tottenham, a 2-2 draw with Watford, a 3-0 win over Frankfurt, a 3-2 win over Aston Villa in the Premier League, and a 5-0 win over Nottingham Forest in the EFL Cup. Now, this one is hard to predict. This one could go either way, but I have a feeling Arsenal will go there and win. I read a stat the other day that I don't think Arsenal won this since about 2006, which is a very, very long time ago. But I fancy Arsenal. Manchester United are really struggling. They're struggling to beat teams like Aston and Rochdale, and I think that this is a great time for Arsenal to take advantage and get the 3 points. A victory for Arsenal could see them go as high as second if Manchester City and Leicester were both to drop points. So it could be a really, really big victory as well, and it would be a great statement to go to Old Trafford and win, something that they very, very rarely do. I'm going to go 2-1 to Arsenal. I remember them beating them in the FA Cup rather, and I think Welbeck scored that night. So I remember that happening. That was I think that was under Van Gaal. Yeah, I don't think they've won in the Premier League since 2006, but they probably should have won their last season. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 victory to Arsenal. So thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, feel free to leave a like and subscribe if you are new. If you haven't already, get your predictions in the comments. There will be a post a comment in the comments with all of the games. I'll just simply copy and paste that and get involved. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like and subscribe, of course, if you're new. My name is Mike, and I will see you soon.